Hi, everyone. Pastor Galen, lead pastor at Cheyenne Hills Church. Thank you so much for joining us on this podcast. We hope that these podcasts will be a real encouragement to you on your spiritual journey. You can also connect with Cheyenne Hills at CheyenneHills.org. Hope you enjoy the program.
We are across the street and around the world, Cheyenne Hills.
Hello, everybody, and we're back in our Genesis study, Genesis chapter 19, and Ken's back. Nice to have you back, Ken.
Yay. Thanks. Good to be back.
So Julie and I had to carry this thing for a while, and it's heavy. It's a heavy carry, through a few of these chapters. And then I think I carried one or two on my own. Did you abandon me completely one time?
No.
Oh, I thought that was just.
That was a dream you had.
I wish I could do this on my own. No,
Why is
not
she
true.
here?
I am so glad to have you guys in studio today. We can go through Genesis.
There were a couple of times, Galen, though, that we were like, "Oh, I wish Ken were here because he could really give us the skinny on this."
So we did miss you, Ken. So welcome back. Glad you're here.
Well, thank you.
And so anyway, I'm going to jump right in because we try to keep these short and sweet. And I would just say to you, if you're driving along in this and listening to this podcast on the radio, this next chapter is kind of, I wouldn't say it's an adult dose. It's for sure. I don't know. 10 and unders would be, it's Sodom and Gomorrah. It's really destruction. It's like you can make your own mind up, but that's where we're going. God rescues Lot from Sodom and Gomorrah. So here it goes. Genesis chapter 19. The two angels came to Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom. When Lot saw them, he arose to meet them, and he bowed himself with his face to the earth and said, "My lords, please turn aside to your servant's house and spend the night and wash your feet. Then you may rise up early and go on your way." They said, "No, we will spend the night in the town square." But he pressed them strongly, so they turned aside to him and entered into his house. And he made them a feast and baked unleavened bread, and they ate. But before they lay down, the men of the city, the men of Sodom, both young and old, all the people to the last man, surrounded the house, and they called to Lot, "Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us that we may know them." Lot went to the men at the entrance, shut the door after him, and he said, "I beg you, my brothers, do not act so wickedly. Behold, I have 2 daughters who have not known any man. Let me bring them out to you, and do to them as you please. Only do nothing to these men, for they have come under my shelter of my roof." But they said, "Stand back." And they said, "This fellow came to sojourn, and he's become a judge. Now we will deal worse with you than with them." Then they pressed hard against the man Lot and drew near to break the door down. But the men reached out their hands and brought Lot into the house with them and shut the door. And they struck with blindness the men who were in the entrance of the house, both small and great, so that they wore themselves out groping for the door. Well, okay, so we got to stop here. This is a lot of action here. So this is a really, there's a lot of oddness that's going on here troubling stuff. First of all, the men of the city of Sodom, desiring those visitors. Okay. And then, Lot's response to him, "Here, let me offer you my daughters." That's disturbing to me.
What kind of a father are you?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's like, this is one of those passages in scripture. You kind of walk away scratching your head. And I don't know, I think the one thing that's relatable in our world, we live in this cesspool, and sometimes we do things that, I don't know. I think this is a definite mark from my opinion on Lot, and to say, "Hey, Lot, you really made a bad call here. That's a bad thing." I can't even imagine really what they did or what he was offering, and it's kind of disturbing to me. I don't know. You got any thoughts? Bail me out here.
No, I can't bail you out. I don't know that you need to be bailed out, but their culture was different. I mean, where guys come and people are standing in the open square where it's like, that's pretty weird in our mind. I mean, we'll go out there and sleep out there in the open courtyard. But of course, Lot realizes the danger of that, and the Mideastern hospitality, where they will pull people into their house and
take care of them.
Yeah, and I mean that even happens to this day. If you ever saw the movie Lone Survivor, where here are the American soldiers and this guy in Afghanistan, I believe it was, and then he protects this American soldier
because he's under my roof.
Yeah, because he's under
protected.
Yeah,
and so so I think I hear where you're going. Then because you're under my roof, I'm going to do whatever it takes to protect my guests. Is that?
Yeah,
you feel like that's kind of
because at least in that context of the modern day soldier, here are the terrorists that were coming to get the guy, and the host pulls out a gun and says, "No, you're not going to," even though. It's like, you're the one living in this country and the Americans are going to maybe withdraw and then what's going to happen to you? So they put their life on the line, and apparently
that's what Lot was doing here, is just saying
he's kind of mindset.
That's really insightful. It really is. When you said there's a space for them in the town square, actually in Africa they do that. They actually have water set out, and then so in these certain kind of bowls, and everybody knows that one's kept fresh for travelers. And so that town square is still kind of a thing in some of at least in Lyra. I know that we talked about that, and that's what Francis. I've got that pot that I have in there. Remember we did that series? Yeah. That was he called it something of honor, a vessel of honor. Oh, wow. That vessel of honor was out in the town square so that anybody could, they knew that was good, fresh drinking water for any passerby. So anyway, so some of that cultural stuff we don't really understand, but that is a great explanation of that, Ken, and I appreciate that. So I think we'll probably maybe land right there. I don't know of any takeaways right away. Do you have any takeaways? Certainly a cultural explanation from this. Another thing real quick that I noticed in this, Lot, from the very beginning, Lot recognized these men as special, whether they were angels or the Lord, I don't know, but he calls them. Lot was sitting at the gate, and when he saw them, he rose up to meet them, and he bowed himself down with his face to the earth, and he said, "My lords, please set aside your servant's house." Now, the fact that he was sitting in the city gate also indicates he may have been the judge of the city, right? He's at the gate.
Yeah, or at least one of them. I mean, maybe a council.
Okay.
But it's interesting then that the locals then kind of harangue him or denigrate him, saying, "You're acting like a judge." It's like, but
he is a judge.
Yeah, he is a judge. I mean, from what we can put together with
I think he's basically, maybe he gave them a little too much grace, and I think that's probably he got a little too close to his culture, possibly, and started not calling out truth, possibly. I mean, and then when he finally does, he said, "What? Why are you being all judgmental now?" Because maybe in the past he hasn't really said much. That's possible. I think that's a good takeaway. You had a passage in 2 Peter. It talks about Lot.
Yes.
And the Bible actually calls him righteous. 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 7.
Yeah, and then after, I had a thought
too
before.
Right.
Do you want me to
yes,
do my thought first?
do.
Okay.
I didn't know that you had a thought.
It's amazing. So we left off in Genesis 18, and Abram, or I guess actually we're Abraham now, intercedes for Sodom.
Right.
And for the sake of 10, I will not destroy it. And then we transitioned to Lot. So there must have been something in Lot that Abraham knew that he was interceding on behalf of him, that he would not be. Because what stands out to me in this passage is the fact that it says, let's see if I can find it. Oh, in verse 4, it says, "But before they laid down, the men of the city, the men of Sodom, both young and old, all the people to the last man, every man came there." And that just really stood out to me, that it was so horrific, that it was so much of the culture. Every man, young and old, came to seek out these angels of the Lord. So anyways,
in a derogatory way.
Right, yeah. Not
to hear that they have to say.
No.
While you get that other passage, I think it's really cool too, is these, I believe they're angels, right? And the angel of the Lord and the two angels came to Sodom. And so it's just interesting to me. They just kind of snatched Lot back out of the house and slammed him and blinded him. And it's like the power that they expressed when they needed to. It's like, whoa, these guys are the real deal. I mean, shows some interesting power in these angelic beings.
And if they had been in the town square, if Lot had not taken them in, they could certainly have stood for themselves.
For sure. No,
but certainly, I don't know that Lot would have been rescued then.
That's true. Yeah, maybe Lot would have. He said, "Hey, we know." That's very possible.
Mm-hmm. That it's that. What is that verse? And I think it was in James. We talked about it in staff about the things that I should do that I don't do.
Yeah,
I mean that would have been
very good.
Following that. Okay, so 2 Peter chapter 2 verse 7 says, "And if he rescued righteous Lot, greatly distressed by the sensual conduct of the wicked, for as that righteous man lived among them day after day, he was tormenting his righteous soul over their lawless deeds that he saw and heard. Then the Lord knows how to rescue the godly from trials and to keep the unrighteous under punishment until the day of judgment." Do you want me to finish the thought?
No, that's good right there. And I just think it's an interesting thing that the New Testament version of Lot is righteous Lot.
Yeah.
And if God knows how to, take a righteous man away from a wicked city, he can take care of you too, or keep people under judgment until the day of judgment, which is another whole topic in and of itself. But I just think it's an interesting concept that it doesn't seem real righteous here. There's a couple of things here that are pretty troubling.
And even the New Testament passage, I mean, it's not that he did some external work. It was just that internally his soul was vexed.
Right.
In the old James, but but it's like, he was still counted righteous because of the internal
that is a great
discomfort that he had.
Great insight, actually. I mean, I think that's something, every one of us can, inside our motive, our intention of our heart really matters to God. I think that's a great takeaway. Let's land right there because that's a good spot. Thank you. So thanks for joining us today. And Genesis chapter 19, kind of an adult dose, if you will. And we're going to continue to plow through Genesis. Hope you can join us soon.